Hey everyone, thanks so much for joining me. This is Tess Rowland with News 13. Today we're going to be talking about the Walk Like Mad event that's going to be happening in our area in Fort Walton Beach on October 23rd. It's going to be 9:30 in the morning at the Landing Park. So as many of you know, I have had quite the journey. I was out of work for 5 months due to a head-on collision, and police say that the driver that hit me was impaired. He was going on the wrong side of the road, and I had no way to avoid him. I'd never broken a bone in my life, and that day I had to have 5 surgeries. I broke my shoulder, my arm, my elbow, my knee. I had internal damage as well. I've come a really long way. I've had to relearn how to walk, and of course it's been such a triumph to come back to work. And I'm actually joined this morning by Miss Kristen Allen. She works with the MADD organization. So tell me more about the purpose of this walk that's happening in our area on October 23rd.
Thank you so much for having me. And I am just blessed to know that you're okay and you're recovering. So I'm so happy about that. But to talk about the walk, yes, we have the walk coming up on October 23rd. It's a family-friendly, non-competitive walk. And really, all we want to do is bring more awareness to our mission to end drunk driving, to help fight drug driving, to support the victims of these violent crimes, and to prevent underage drinking.
Yes. So talk to me about what exactly Mothers Against Drunk Driving does. How do you support victims in the area who, face the loss of a loved one or become seriously injured?
So we do have staff who are victim services specialists that are trained, educated, have the background to support victims during this difficult time. So they do emotional support, so talking with somebody over the phone whenever they're needing somebody to listen to what they're going through. We go to court with people during this time, during the pandemic. It's usually via Zoom, but we are seeing courts opening back up. So we are going back in person with the families that want to be in attendance in those hearings. We offer a lot of literature, grief literature, injury literature, to talk, like to get people to understand what they're going through, what they're going to see next steps, really to show that they're not alone and that they aren't, what they're going through isn't abnormal. It is normal going through something just so traumatic. So we have that literature. We also help them file crime victims compensation applications for some financial subsidy if it's funeral burial expenses, mental health counseling. It could be medical expenses if they find themselves in the hospital. So we offer those services. We also help with victim impact statement preparation. So when the time comes, there was a conviction of guilt, there is a sentencing, we allow, the courts allow the victims to get up and speak and share really what they've been through and what a DUI crash and how it impacted their life. And that's really the first time that victims get the chance to speak in court, that the offender hears from them, that the judge hears, the feedback from the victim. So we offer the victim impact statement, preparation. There's a lot of other things that we do for victims. We hold candlelight vigils. We have remembrance dinners. We really just want to make sure that we can support them every step of the way. And with victim survivors, there's really no timetable to their grief, to their healing journey. So we're there as long as they need us.
So you guys really cover, all spectrums of this. And, in going through this myself, I could personally say it's a very long process. It's rather complicated at times to, go through the court process. And then, of course, dealing with the, physical as well as mental rehabilitation. And there's a lot to understand there. And typically, a lot of times that we see, these cases, they go to trial. A lot of times victims feel that the drunk driver doesn't get the time that, they deserve for robbing a life, altering their life. So can you touch upon that and just, what Matt is doing to raise awareness and hopefully eventually create a change within the system that these cases are treated with a lot more severity?
Definitely. So with the criminal justice system, it really tends to be what the victims are wanting. Some want leniency, some actually want to see, the full maximum sentence. With the DUI manslaughter charge, it's a 15-year maximum sentence. And you will see that in some cases, you won't see it in others. And it really just depends, on how the case is, if there's strengths, there's weaknesses also. But typically, prosecution really tries to go and get the best outcome for the family. The family does get input, but the ultimate call is with the prosecutor who's handling that case. And if it's a winnable case, then they're going to obviously go forth with, a trial or with a plea. And, I don't know if any amount of time will suffice the impact of what somebody's been through. I don't know if you can put a number on somebody's life. I think, every life is priceless. So I don't know. I think people get to a point of acceptance of, if it's a 15-year, if it's a 10-year term, if it's a plea deal, if it's a, 4-year mandatory minimum. I mean, we've seen those too. So I think what happens is when you see a case, go to trial and, the jury comes back with a not guilty verdict, I really do see that complicates people's grief. But you also see when there are sentencing hearings and people end up with probation, they're still allowed to drive. They're still allowed to, kind of live on with their life while the family is now, left with dealing with the probation term and suffering the loss of their loved one. So, it really just depends on how much you can push for a stronger sentence. And we definitely want to see that in the with the legislation. We want to see tougher sentences on DUI, just a misdemeanor DUI, for instance, not just a DUI manslaughter charge, but it definitely takes a toll on families. But I really don't know if anybody's ever satisfied with the sentence outcome, just because of like you said, the long haul of recovery for injury victims. You live with that for the rest of your life. You do want people to take responsibility, be accountable for their actions. And, the court is the place for, the punishment, but sometimes the punishment doesn't fit the crime.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more with that. And, that's why we're walking really to change the narrative, to create awareness, to get people to understand that what they think is, could be an innocent mistake could really take a toll on a family or another person's life. So MADD's been around for quite a while, and you guys have made some headway in, of course, preventing these accidents from occurring. So you guys have also been instrumental in putting new technology in cars as well through your push through legislation and, of course, just raising awareness. So do you mind talking to me about that?
Sure. So, back in the, I guess, when I got started with MADD, we didn't have ignition airlocks installed on people's vehicles who were convicted of a DUI charge. We were successful at getting that passed in 2008, I believe. And we've been pushing to try to, extend that to first-time DUI offenders at a 0.08 BAC for alcohol ignition airlock installation. That has now turned us into going more on a federal level of seeing what type of technology already exists for driver monitoring systems into vehicles. And there's quite a few. I believe MADD was able to find at least 175 different driver monitoring detection systems that could detect drowsy driving, distracted driving, drunk driving, drug driving. So we're pushing along those lines of federal legislation to make it a federal mandate for auto manufacturers to start putting these into their vehicles.
Yeah, so I could definitely say, that technology in my crash, I feel was instrumental, especially the fact that my car was able to stop because it detected another vehicle. I definitely think that it made an impact. Obviously my crash was pretty severe, but, moving forward, if we have more technology that could even prevent it from happening, that is the real key there. Of course, people need to make the choice to not drive impaired, and that goes on all levels. Do not drink and drive. Do not, overtake kind of medications. Even if they're prescribed, you could still be arrested for a DUI. A lot of people don't know that also. But there's also different types of legislation that is currently in the works to provide even more technology, and it's really geared along the lines of preventing it from even, being able to take place. So can you talk to me about those acts that are currently, we're trying to get more push for?
Sure. So it's the Ride and Halt Act, and it's based really. MADD took a notice on a high-profile drunk driving crash that took place in Kentucky. It was a family from Michigan who actually was visiting Florida and on their way back home, and they were hit head-on by a wrong-way drunk driver, and the whole family was killed. All five family members were killed, and it really, it really put a fire under MADD, I think, to say, when is enough enough? And that's when MADD really started looking at the research of driver detection monitoring systems. We see the autonomous vehicles. You see, the sensors of, people braking, the car braking for you. There was a time that airbags weren't mandatory in cars or seatbelts, and now we have that. So we knew there could be a future of no more impaired driving, to include alcohol and drugs. So, like I said before, 175 different methods of driver detection monitoring systems exist now currently through different auto manufacturers. And it's really up to the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration to really narrow those down to what could actually go into vehicles. And the Ride and Halt Act, has been successful at bringing awareness and attention to there could be a time in the near future that we can eliminate impaired driving. And I don't know who wouldn't get on board with that. It's one of those things that, cars are going to be the cure. And MADD has said that from my time being at MADD, that, we were looking at that. We were trying to make cars to be the cure if people weren't taking the personal responsibility to stop, from drinking and driving. So that's where MADD is, we've really grown in that. And we're really excited to see what the Halt and Ride Acts do at the federal level. And we're hopeful, we're very hopeful to see that we're going to see an end to impaired driving in our lifetime.
Yeah, it's amazing to think about that this could not even happen, if there was push to start cars and you could detect blood alcohol content just by the pressing of your finger. It's something to really look forward to. So how can folks at home support, those acts and, of course, your mission?
Sure. They can always go to our website, madd.org. We are always posting different things, action alerts that people, if they want to be emailed, to email their congressman. We can get their email, capture their email, and we can make sure that they're aware of those things happening. So when it's time for the an email or a phone call to go out to, their congressman or legislator, they know and they take action. Anybody can get more information about madd.org, just by going to our underage page, our victim services page, our, outreach page, fundraising page. It's all the information is really there at our madd.org page. They can always call our local office too. We have about 7 different offices in the state of Florida. Obviously, I'm in charge of North Florida. So I serve from Pensacola all the way to Jacksonville down to Gainesville. I have wonderful staff who can certainly talk with people. They can get them involved with volunteering. They can get involved with just different aspects that we do with the organization. If they want to just learn more about us, we're happy to talk to anybody about our mission.
And that's great to hear. And we will be putting all that information on our website, mypanhandle.com. So it'll be a vessel for you to get to the MADD page and, of course, support their mission as well, both locally and at the federal level if you're able to. And the last thing that I want to talk about as well is, the impact of drunk driving, of course, on families as well, but also on local law enforcement. So, you're in Crestview right now, kind of assisting with DUI task force and things of that nature. I recently rode along with FHP. So shocked to find out, just the process of really arresting a drunk driver and how lengthy it can be with a lot of paperwork. There's a lot of, particular details that you have to be zoned in on. In particular, one thing that I noticed as well is that to properly breathalyze someone after they've failed a field sobriety test, we were fortunate in our ride along that we were outfitted in a vehicle that had a breathalyzer on deck, but typically a lot of local law enforcement, they have to drive that individual if they do agree to, give their blood alcohol content and be breathalyzed or take a urine sample. They have to be driven, to another facility to do that. So it's such a lengthy process. So what can we also do to support, local law enforcement in their quest? Because it really starts at the local level as well to prevent these accidents from occurring. So what is MADD doing in that regard? And what can we do?
Sure. So law enforcement is a natural partner of MADD's. I mean, they're our first line of defense with a drunk driver. So we call them our heroes because they are. They're saving lives every single day. And, to remove somebody off the road due to, a DUI, it is lengthy. But I don't want people to be scared about that because these officers and deputies and troopers are trained to look for impaired driving. They are well trained to do the DUI investigation on scene. They do, they're trained in the field sobriety exercises. We have DREs, so drug recognition experts. So if, somebody blows up all zeros, 0.00 BAC, well, that says they weren't drinking, but, they detect that something is going on with them, that they're impaired somehow. The DREs are coming in and they're doing their evaluation, and that is lengthy, training and education. So when we're talking about a DUI, yes, it can probably take somebody off the road, between 2 to 4 hours, depending on how experienced they are and seasoned in DUI arrests. But what we can't equate is that person who was arrested for DUI. We don't know how many lives were saved by taking that person off that road. So that's where I say, law enforcement, yes, I want them to take more people off the roads. I want them to be trained and educated. And we have those people, on the front lines doing that on a daily basis. So I'm actually, like you mentioned, I'm in Crestview because Crestview Police Department asked me to come out and do death notification training for their officers. And they brought in other agencies to get the training as well. So MADD wants to support our law enforcement. So we offer trainings for death notification or sensitivity training for victims. We want law enforcement to be properly trained. So if there is a need for them to do a death notification with the family for a DUI crash, it's done in a sensitive, compassionate, professional manner. And so that's why I'm here to do that. And but I appreciate everything that they do. It's a hard job. They see a lot of they see the worst of the worst. And so I'm thankful that they do the job that they do. As far as what can people do to support our law enforcement, if you ever get a chance to, tell them thank you, do it. It goes a long way. I talk to DUI offenders at a victim impact panel on a monthly basis. And part of what I say is, if you ever get a chance to thank that law enforcement officer that pulled you over, they saved your life. And that's bottom line, is they saved their life. They have families, they have friends, they have children at home waiting for them. They don't want to get that knock on the door to tell them that somebody, that their loved one is killed or dead because of a DUI crash. We want everybody to get home. And bottom line is, everybody has a role to play with impaired driving prevention. Take Lyft, take Uber, plan ahead, designate a sober driver, take a taxi. There is no excuse for anybody to drive drunk or impaired in this day and age.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree with you more. There's no excuse. There's so many options. I mean, locally in Bay County, I've helped with White's Wreckers to get kind of a towing task force. So it helps tow people from bars who have brought their vehicles, to implore them to not drink and drive. There's also Lyft and Uber, like you said. And that's a great way to look at it, really getting pulled over. No one likes to be on the receiving end of that ticket, but it really is a way to save your life if you think about it that way. And thank you goes a long way. And I want to thank you for spending your morning with me. And I want to thank you for all the work that you're doing to get those laws in place. And hopefully we will have a day that there is not an impaired driver that is able to take on the road. I want to thank everyone for watching this. And I hope that, you have the resources, if you can, to walk with us on October 23rd, or at the very least, make a monetary donation if you are able. But most importantly, I hope everyone watching this makes the conscious choice to not drive impaired, to not take on the roads, take that pledge. You really could not only save someone else's life, but your own life in the process. So again, if you'd like to help MADD on the request or walk with us, you can do so on our website, mypanhandle.com. That link will be there for you. And thank you so much for your time again, Kristen.